Chapter 124, Win an inch, want a foot. The sounds of horses' hoofs sounded from afar like raindrops. Stop! Stop fighting! Someone shouted out loud. Ling Tian ignored the shout completely as he continued to order, beat! Beat them up! Beat them up good! Let them remember this incident forever! Beat 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 beat! As he shouted, his hands were not idle either. After the loud shout for him to stop, not only did he not stop, he began to whip the Yang family guards even harder. The whip in his hands let out pa-pa-pa sounds, raining down on the Yang family's guards like rain. All of a sudden, another whip appeared from the side, tangling together with Ling Tian's whip. A deep voice then bellowed, "Nephew Ling Tian, do not go too far. It's best that you show some mercy." Ling Tian turned to look. The one stopping his whip was Yang Wei's father, Yang Lei, and the one talking was Yang Kongku. After the Yang family received news of the fight breaking out at the city gates, they rushed here as fast as they could but were still too late. Seeing how those on the floor were all from their family, they all could not help but be ignited with rage as they glared at Ling Tian hatefully. Especially Yang Wei and Yang Lei, who almost burst out on the spot. Yang Kongku. What is the meaning of this? Unexpectedly, before those from the Yang family had a chance to say anything, Ling Tian hollered out first. "This young noble's teacher wants to enter the city, what has that got to do with your Yang family? Yang Kongku, you allowed a bunch of your underlings to stop my teacher's carriage. They were arrogant and despotic, purposefully making things difficult for my teacher and not letting him into the city. When this young noble came to receive him personally, your men still dared to make a move against me. Yang Kongku, you are too arrogant. In this broad daylight, do you really think that your Yang family can cover the whole sky-bearing city with the palm of your hands? Yang Kongku, I think that you old fogey want to revolt. How bold! I will make sure to complain to my uncle-in-law about you old brat. Execute your whole family and confiscate all of your possessions." With a slanted hat and untidy clothes, Ling Tian's face was sinister and his voice loud, scolding Yang Kongku as though Yang Kongku was in the wrong. It was as though Ling Tian had suffered a large grievance, being extremely wronged. As Ling Tian said that, everyone from the Yang family almost fainted from anger. They all suddenly felt like they were fishes out of water, taking in a large breath of air in unison. The sounds of swords unsheathing could then be heard. Half of the Yang family's guards drew out their blades with faces of rage. The family head of the Yang family was someone who could be said to be a head above the rest in the sky-bearing empire. Today, he was actually scolded by Ling Tian so ferociously, calling him an old fogey and old brat. This was something that they just could not endure. A quick trace of anger flashed by Yang Kongku's face and he waved his hands, commanding his troops to stay calm. However, his eagle-like eyes continued to be focused on Ling Tian's face, as though he did not want to miss a single trace of Ling Tian's emotions. Then, a slight smile appeared on his face. "Nephew Ling Tian, a large incident happened in my Yang family. A guest from afar was killed innocently and we are searching the whole city for the perpetrator. What is wrong with that? But you, inverting black into white and being unreasonable. Perhaps, you have a guilty conscience." "I am inverting black into white? I am being unreasonable? I have a guilty conscience? Yang Kongku, what kind of bullshit are you spewing? Didn't Nan Gongla die in your Yang family? Why are you putting the blame on my head? I think that you old brat must be afraid of the Nan Gong family. Maligning this young noble? Ch. Yang Kongku, I can't believe that you actually have the face to say that. Not to mention Nan Gongla, even if I want to kill your 3 bastard grandchildren, this young noble will definitely kill them openly. Is there a need for me to have a guilty conscience? What a big joke. Even if this young noble killed that silk pants Nan Gongla, what can you do to me?" Ling Tian shouted back with his nose pointed to the sky, being abnormally arrogant and domineering. "Since you have already admitted that you killed Nan Gongla, repay justice to my Yang family. Yang Lei, who was by the side, interrupted. "Che, you really know how to go with the flow. If this daddy here does it, I would not be afraid to admit it. But, you better not think about framing me if it was not done by me. If you dare to malign me any further, I will go and complain to my uncle-in-law." "If that's the case, since nephew Ling Tian has nothing to hide, why did you stop my men from searching you? Can there be another secret in the carriage?" Yang Konkun was not angry in the slightest, asking with a solemn tone. Ling Tian then chuckled, "Yang Konkun, you do not need to agitate me. If they chose to talk to me nicely, this young noble will invite my teacher down personally. I can even give the carriage to your Yang family. After all, your Yang family is poor and will not have too many of these carriages. It wouldn't matter much for this young noble to give 1 or 2 of such carriages to your Yang family. However, your guys stopped me as though they were robbers, with malevolent looks on their faces. Do you think this young noble will accept such a treatment? I originally wanted to let you guys check the carriage, but that will be impossible now. This daddy here just isn't willing. What are you going to do about that?" Ling Tian's words were also extremely vicious. The Yang family poor? One of the 8 great families on the continent would lack carriages? If this were to be spread, the Yang family would not be able to raise their heads anymore. "Ling Tian, you better not go too far. Our Yang family has been enduring you for a long time already. You have to know that we have our limits too." Yang Wei, who was by the side, shouted out. Look, this is how everyone from your Yang family acts. Scum without any upbringing. This young noble is talking to your grandfather. Since when is it your turn to interrupt us? Are you the family head of the Yang family now?" Ling Tian said with sarcasm. "You." Yang Wei was angered to the point he could not say anything. However, he did not dare to retort either, as what Ling Tian said wasn't wrong. After all, he did not pick the right timing to interrupt, only realizing his mistake after he had shouted out. If his grandfather were to really misunderstand him, things would be extremely bad. Yang Konkun looked at Ling Tian with a slight flicker in his eyes. "Nephew Ling Tian, are you really not going to let this old man check your carriage?" His tone was extremely deep, as though it was the signal for a storm. Ling Tian then burst out into laughter and replied with a question, "Yang Konkun, must you really check this carriage? If you really want to check it, it is simple as well. You just need to agree to a single condition and this young noble will invite Mr. Ken out immediately. I will even give you the carriage and you can check it as you like." He purposefully mentioned giving the Yang family the carriage, coating his words with a layer of sarcasm. "What condition?" Yang Konkun began to frown. How was it possible that he wanted to check this carriage? There was only an old man inside and nothing else to check. He was only trying to test Ling Tian's reaction. However, he never imagined that the situation would develop as such. "Very simple, let's make things clear first. If you cannot find the perpetrator in the carriage, what will your Yang family do? If this young noble is satisfied, this young noble will not say a second word. I would invite my teacher down and leave without the carriage," Ling Tian said with a bright smile, looking at Yang Konkun as though he was a starving mouse looking at a piece of cheese. His expression seemed to be telling Yang Konkun, "Hee, it is time to extort you." "Ha ha ha, nephew Ling Tian, since you are so insistent, I will not be so calculative with you. I shall believe that the perpetrator isn't in the carriage. Go back with your men and tell your grandfather that I will find him for chess when I have the time," Yang Konkun said with a smile, looking like a doting grandfather. "What a joke, I already know that there is only an old man, Mr. Qin, in the carriage. If this old man still makes a bet with you, isn't this just giving you the opportunity to extort me? Since your Ling family does not have any suspicions now, why do I have to play along with you?" Thus, Yang Konkun let Ling Tian pass immediately. Seeing Ling Tian's domineering appearance, Yang Konkun's suspicions were also gone. He could not help but think to himself, it seems that it really wasn't this brat. Ha ha ha, Ling Tian burst out into laughter. Yang Kongku, what do you take this young noble to be? Checking when you want to and I have to leave when you ask me to leave? He then pointed to his guards, take a look at what your men did to them. Trying to leave without giving me an explanation? There isn't something so good in the world. This is the territory of my uncle-in-law, this is a place with laws. Ling Tian shouted with anger, his voice resounding in the city gates. Looking at the guards of the Yang family, blood was flowing from all of their noses and mouths as their teeth fell out and limbs fractured. There wasn't a single person who was uninjured and it was just unbearable to even watch them. Looking at the guards of the Ling family, while there were some with bandages, the majority of them were uninjured. All of them stood up brimming with energy, with not even a single serious injury. Just who should give who an explanation? Everyone could not help but have that doubt. Everyone stared at each other speechlessly, using a present-day saying, seated silently with tears streaming down the face, the sound of a camel's bell ringing in their ears. 1. Everyone from the Yang family were basically angered speechless by Ling Tian. All the guards of the Ling family were holding their lips tightly, afraid that they would burst out into laughter if they weren't careful. This young noble of theirs was really too. Even after having the upper hand, he still has to extort them. No matter how tolerant he was, Yang Kongku could no longer rein in his anger as he hollered, "Nephew Ling Tian, you have already gained enough benefits. Now that the Yang family is busy with our affairs, we cannot be bothered with being calculative with you. It's best that you don't go too far." Ling Tian then snorted, "Who is the one going too far here? Your guards are just more heavily injured on the surface. Yang Kongku, if you did not command them to be so unreasonable, will this young noble stoop myself down to their level? Your Yang family was the one who created trouble first and blew things up. Now, you want to let me forget about everything with a single sentence? Yang Kongku, as the family head of a great family, don't you think that it is extremely embarrassing for you to say something like that? Do you really need me to ask my uncle-in-law to be the judge of this matter?" Everyone was speechless as they were filled with admiration by how this silk pants young noble was able to invert black into white. With a single sentence, he made the Ling family the victim of this incident. Furthermore, the Yang family had no way to retort because they were indeed the ones who started the incident. Chapter 125, The Nangong Family. Yang Kongku let out a heavy sigh as he asked, "What do you want?" Ling Tian smiled delightedly, "Simple, this young noble's bodyguard is injured and would need a physician to attend to him. My teacher had traveled for such a long distance and is already weary. In addition to being shocked by Yu Yang's, he would require some therapeutic remedy. This young noble here has a lot of things to do and because of your problems, I've had to tarry for a whole afternoon. The Yang family should also show some courtesy. How about giving us 10,000 taels of silver as compensation? This young noble shall also be magnanimous and not argue with you all any longer." Ling Tian appeared full of sincerity as he spoke, even sighing at himself, as though he was shocked at his own magnanimity. Looking at Ling Tian's shameless expression, all the Yang family members revealed looks of murder, and stared daggers at him. As long as Yang Kongku gave the command, all of them would immediately throw themselves forward, beating that intolerable fellow into a pulp. Yang Kongku took a deep breath slowly, suppressing the boiling blood caused by his anger to Ling Tian. Currently, the Yang family was facing both internal and external conflicts. It was definitely inadvisable to provoke their decade-old enemy, the Ling family. If they were to do so, it would be equivalent to provoking the Nangong, Ling, Wang and Imperial families. Even if the problem could be solved, the Yangs would also end up ruined. Since this was a mere few thousand taels of silver, they could afford it. When they recovered in the future, then he would slowly take care of this kid. Ling Tian would always be in sky-bearing anyway, it was not like he could grow wings and fly off. Moreover, this kid Ling Tian had picked this sort of opportune time to take advantage of his weakness. Obviously, Ling Tian had already analyzed the circumstances. If Yang Kongku did not want his family to weaken and collapse, then this grievance must be swallowed and not let out. Since that's the case, this old man shall fork out 20,000 taels of silver and we shall let matters be bygones, alright? Once Yang Kongku had made his decision, his troubled heart settled down again and he spoke in a level tone. No matter the case, he finally expelled his suspicions regarding the Ling family. Although he had investigated the Ling family, deep in his heart, he did not want the matter to be related to them. This would only mean that they had both internal and external troubles to solve. His carefully made plans would end up flowing away like a spring river flowing east. After all, this was only 20,000 taels of silver. The moment his words were spoken, the surrounding people had a huge change in expression. Everybody thought that Yang Kongku would definitely not accept the unreasonable terms set down by Ling Tian. The Yang family's guards already had their weapons drawn out of their sheaths and were brimming with killing intent. The people on the Ling side had also long grasped the weapons on their hands. The people situated on the city walls were also waiting for a good show, who knew that Yang Kongku would end up with such a weak finish. Even Ling Tian himself thought that this was out of his expectations, to think that this willy fellow knows how to endure. Indeed a sly figure of his generation. Ling Tian, however, burst out into laughter. Senior is taking this too seriously. This junior was only pulling your leg. Since Grandpa Yang has already suggested a suitable compensation, if junior were to reject, then that would be not showing you face. As the old saying goes, if the elder bestows something, the junior does not dare to reject. As such, this junior Ling Tian will be disrespecting you if I were to reject. These 20,000 taels of silver is not a small sum, enough for this young noble to visit the Smoky Thea Tower for a few nights of enjoyment. As such, I really should thank you. This junior really has a lot of faith with you. Ha ha ha. Ling Tian appeared to be so elated, to the point he even changed the way he addressed Yang Kongku. Before that, it was Yang Kongku that told fogey or old brat, those sorts of derogatory comments. But in an instant, it changed to being Senior Yang and Grandpa Yang. This 180-degree change in expression let others gape in astonishment. In a blink of an eye, he became extremely warm and close towards Yang Kongku, his face full of radiance, as though he could not hold back the happiness in his heart. The crowd all sighed in amazement, for this young noble Ling did not have a profession as an actor. What a waste of a good talent. After receiving the bills that Yang Lei passed over with gritted teeth, Ling Tian slapped the bills against his finger with a paw sound, his face full of happiness as he said, 20,000 taels, not a single tael less. Thank you, Elder Yang. He cupped his hands, and amidst laughing heartily, saddled his black horse and moved off. The chariot behind him also set off slowly and the Ling family's guards also got onto their horses and galloped away, their faces beaming with happiness. Within the courtyard of the Yang family, over 100 men wore white bandages on their foreheads. Some sported bandages on their arms, fresh blood continuously seeping from the white cloth. Furthermore, people were constantly being carried in and one of them was the head butler, Yang Yun. Head butler Yang was still unconscious, his mouth sunken in. It was obvious that all his teeth were knocked out by someone, with at least 7 to 8 of his ribs broken. However, he was not in any life-threatening scenario and would be able to keep his little life. Most of those injured were the same, some lighter and some heavier injuries, but no one in danger of dying. The people who acted against them seemed to be very considerate. Yang Kongku, Yang Lei, Yang Zhen, as well as Nan Gongyu, all stood on the stone steps of the inner courtyard, all with different expressions. Yang Lei and Yang Zhen had expressions of fury, the veins on their heads jumping and grinding sounds coming from their mouths. Yang Kongku, however, appeared indifferent, as though he had other thoughts. Nan Gongyu, who was standing by the side, saw the whole courtyard full of casualties. While her expression on the surface seemed to be full of fury, the pupils of her eyes revealed an expression of relief. Yang Kongku, you evil fellow, You plotted against my brother and adopted this sort of stance in order to curry favor with my Nangong family. The whole world knows that Ling Tian is a silkpant and your Yang family would usually give way to him. But today, you went against him despite the troubles on your hands. You are obviously trying to draw the attention of others to the Ling family. Old fart. Since your scheme is going according to your wishes, how can this lady here let you achieve it? The Ling family might look easy to handle, but if we were to really take action, it would be as good as pitting the Nangong family against the entire sky-bearing empire. If this lady here did not find out the truth, I would still kept in the dark by you. But now that I've already discovered your actions, in my eyes, you're merely putting on a despicable act in front of me. Nangong Yu thought to herself viciously. Dad, I don't understand why you would back down willingly just like that. Since we want to investigate the Ling family and Ling Tian, why would you deploy the lowest ranked guards over? This time, if we had a few experts on the scene, how would our Yang family's men be beaten you up till this extent and furthermore subject to such humiliation? Yang lay blustered. Right now, he longed to dismember Ling Tian into 1,000 pieces. Disgraceful. We went over to investigate, not to wage a war. We only went over to confirm our suspicions. If we had brought along our experts, would that still be an investigation? If, in the worst case scenario, we end up beating that kid Ling Tian to death or end up crippling him? How do we fix the scenario? Right now, the Yang family is so unstable and you want to invite the wrath of the Ling family over as well? This old man ordered these people there for them to be beaten. If Ling Tian did not beat them up and earnestly allowed to them search the carriage, or if he wasn't there in person, then that would mean trouble. If that's the case, then the Ling family would definitely be at the top of the list. However, since he acted as per his arrogant and despotic self, then we now have to lie low and watch the situation further. Yang Konku hollered in fury. Oh? If that's the case, then does family head Yang think that the Ling family is the prime suspect in killing my brother? Is this entire matter orchestrated by the Ling family? Nangong Yu calmly spoke out. However, an indiscernible flash of ridicule appeared in the pupils of her eyes. I can't be sure at the moment. Yang Konku replied cautiously, however, the suspicion on them has not been lifted yet. This old man feels that the kid Ling Tian is hiding some secrets which I cannot figure out. Oh. Nangong Yu let out a sound full of hidden understanding and did not speak further. However, deep in her heart, she was relentlessly cursing, you old fox, keep playing your tricks and lies. See who will believe you. The Nangong family. Nangong Tianlong trembled from head to toe, as a thin piece of paper fell from his hand and drifted towards the ground. For many years now, the hands of this Nangong family head had never been unstable, till now where he let slip the paper in his hands. In that very instant, the imposing lord of southern Zheng, the Nangong family head, seemed to have turned into a life-sized statue, his powerful stature seemingly becoming rigid. The wrinkles on his face also seemed clearer at this moment. Madame Nangong looked at her husband in bewilderment as she bent down to pick up the mail sent over by the pigeon. Only she, other than the family head himself, dared to read the secret letters sent. Letter. An agonized shriek sounded out and Madame Nangong felt as though her heart had been forcefully ripped out of her at this moment. On the letter was her daughter's neat and elegant handwriting. The words were few, the meaning clear. This was a mere piece of paper, but to Madame Nangong, it was like a thunderstorm on a sunny day. Her emotions ran amok in that instant. The woman who was no lacking from men in terms of ability, Madame Nangong, suddenly felt her vision turn black. At the same time, she lost track of her senses. Her face as white as snow and her body suddenly pitched backward as she collapsed. Wife. Nangong Tianlong took his collapsed wife into his arms, desperately calling out to her. After a long while, Madame Nangong finally regained her consciousness. Scenes of Nangong La, from childhood till his present age, flashed piece after piece across her eyes. Though her son was stubborn and unruly, licentious and behaved like a silkpant, inside her heart, he was still her beloved darling whom she had carried for close to 10 months. However, this piece of paper seemed to have gorged out 20 years of her blood, sweat, and tears. Lair. My lair. Madame Nangong let out another heartrending scream of despair, her mind at a complete loss. She suddenly felt as though her life on this earth had lost all meaning. Half of her soul seemed to have left her body, dissipating into the sky. Hoo-ah! Madame Nangong suddenly opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her pristine white clothing was now stained with spots of red. That was the heartbroken blood of a caring mother. She then could not bear the mental stress and fainted once again into her husband's embrace, her eyes tightly shut. It was as though she did not wish to wake up and did not wish to face this cruel news head-on. Lair. There was a moment of peace and quiet before Nangong Tianlong's rigid body began to tremble once more. While hugging his unconscious wife's body tightly, 2 streams of tears formed, rolling down his face. Suddenly, he jerked his head up, viciously staring at the north, where the sky-bearing empire was situated, before letting out an animalistic growl from deep within himself. Yang, Kong. The tone was low, only heard by himself and his wife, but it was full of a hatred to the bones. The two of them were clear about it. The news of Nangongla's death traveled faster than the wind. Not even a day had passed and every major power on the heavenly star continent had obtained this piece of news. Every leader in charge of a major power simultaneously thought of these 2 words upon receiving the piece of news: a chance. Chapter 126, Brewing Storm. Western Han, Eastern Zhou, Wu Empire, Southern Jing, Northern Wei, all of them almost reacted at the same time. They all sent their trusted aides to the sky-bearing empire. Even if they cannot get any benefits from the sky-bearing empire, they can get some information about their opponent's strength. This can also be considered to be a great harvest for them. If they can form an alliance with one of the other powers, that would be even better. Now, the storm is brewing in the sky-bearing empire with many powers gathered within it. This is also the best time for them to take advantage of the troubled times. Every empire had been preparing in secret for battle. Everyone could tell that the death of this insignificant silk pants had already become the best chance. As long as this matter wasn't handled carefully, the flames of war would burst forth, starting with the sky-bearing empire. Before Meng Jiili had a chance to set off from the northern way, he received this unexpected news, thus increasing his entourage. After receiving this piece of news, Meng Jiili went silent for a full 10 minutes, before letting out a long sigh. The sky-bearing empire now was just like an ancient beast, opening its malevolent mouth while revealing the treasures hidden within its stomach. While everyone knew that it was dangerous for them to go, risking the possibility of being eaten up, all the heroes of the world still chose to enter into the mouth of the beast. Despite the risk of death, they hoped that the treasure in the beast would belong to them. With the current unstable situation, who knows how many heroes would be buried in the sky-bearing empire. Nangongla was originally an insignificant character, who only had the advantage of the Nangong surname. He was the son of the family head and he was even the eldest son of the first wife. However, he did not inherit the family's legacy and did not have the rights to become the next family head. He was just nothing more than a silk pants with no merit to speak of. The death of someone as insignificant as him was something that no one would have paid attention to originally. But in such troubled times, Nangongla had unexpectedly died on the way to a marriage proposal. If the party he was making a proposal to wasn't the granddaughter of the Yang family, if the Yang family wasn't in the center of the continent and part of the sky-bearing empire, the death of Nangongla would be completely unimportant. However, all of the conditions had all been luckily fulfilled. Thus, even if he was just an insignificant character, he was already fated to be recorded into the annals of history. No matter what his reputation was, no matter how the people in future would discuss about him, the name of Nan Gongla was definitely going to be recorded down in the books. How many virtuous officials had worked their hearts out, striving for the very best in everything they do? How many famous generals had spilled their bloods in the battlefield, fighting 100 battles? However, they were unable to be recorded down in history. As for Nan Gongla, this absolutely unlikely character to appear in the history books had actually lived forever in the books. If Nan Gongla were to find out about that in his afterlife, would he feel gratitude towards Ling Tian? What? Nan Gong Yanlong's son died in the sky-bearing empire? Furthermore, it was after Yang Kongqun accepted the marriage? Zhou family. Zhou Fenghan stood up and laughed. Gather all the elders and family members for a meeting in the meeting hall. For this matter to happen in such a sensitive time, this is just like a biscuit falling down from the sky. Ha ha ha, Ling Tian, Ling Tian. After making me depressed for a full 10 years, you finally gave me a big present. If this old man does not accept it, wouldn't it be a waste of your goodwill? While he did not understand the whole affair, and did not investigate the matter, Zhou Fenghan was certain that this matter was definitely done by Ling Tian. Zhou Fenghan still had a lingering fear from facing that demon-like little brat. Now that the world was about to erupt into chaos with undercurrents all around, who would dare to risk the chaos of the world, stirring up the world to seek some benefits from it? Apart from that mysterious teen, who else could there be? But if he wants to send men to the sky-bearing empire to make use of this opportunity, Zhou Fenghan would not be able to avoid facing Ling Tian. But how can Ling Tian's wisdom be underestimated? Since he had chosen to stir up a storm, how was it possible for him to not have a trump card? If the person sent there wasn't wise and capable enough, he would definitely be led by the nose. If he wasn't careful, not only would he be unable to win any benefits for his family, he may even fall into the trap of that little brat. We must be extremely careful. Extremely cautious. Who should we send? The weeping willow extends 3,000 miles, with 90,000 graceful threads. Seating and watching the storms of the world, only my Northeast number 1 Zhou. This little poem was to describe the number 1 financial magnate, the Northeast Zhou family. The wealth, manpower, resources, and power of the Zhou family could be described from this poem. The 3,000 miles of mountains and rivers in the Northeast region was completely controlled by the Zhou family. It wouldn't be too much to call the Zhou family an empire. It was also no wonder that the Zhou family would disdain to be ranked together with the 8 great families. With the power they controlled, it was not something which any of the great family can compare with. As long as the Zhou family was present, the place would definitely be filled with willows. With the weeping willows all around, the Zhou family will be wealthy for 1,000 years. This was phrase which their wise ancestor had left behind for them. The Zhou family had always kept to this teaching. As long as the Zhou family was present, they would definitely grow willows regardless of the difficulty. After generations of planting willows, this hand resulted in the spectacular scene of the willows across 3,000 miles. The Zhou family, Green Ripple Immortal Park. Here was where the headquarters of the Zhou family was. There were continuous rows of buildings, overwhelming but yet solemn. The beauty of the buildings made it seem like an immortal's palace. At the gate of the Immortal Park, a large crater was cleaved out from a small hill before being flattened carefully. Then, a gigantic azurite rock, over 10,000 caddies heavy, was embedded into it, with the words Green Ripple Immortal Park engraved into it. Then, the words were painted in gold, shining in the sunlight. Every word was at least the height of half a person, filled with the domineering aura of a monarch. At this moment, there was 100-men squadron stationed at the entrance of the villa with a healthy horse behind everyone. The eyes of the 100 men were extremely calm with a clear divine light in their eyes. The temples by the side of their heads were raised up high, obviously looking like experts of the pugilistic world. The person at the very front had a refined scholarly appearance, with his beard flowing gently in the wind. He had red phoenix eyes, sharp nose, broad forehead, square face and an unrestrained vibe behind his imposing aura. He was dressed entirely in green with his posture upright, looking as though he was about to make a trip. He was the wisest person in the Zhou family, the younger brother of Zhou Fenghan, Zhou Fengying. By the side of Zhou Fengying was a plainly dressed young lady. Her fine black hair was like the waterfall, with a jade-like face, arched eyebrows and clear eyes. Below her charming nose bridge, her lips were a red rosy color. Her body's figure was extremely balanced, being a little fat if she put on a little more weight and looking a little skinny if she lost any more weight. She was indeed a beauty who could cause nations to topple. She was the precious jewel of the Zhou family, Zhou Yanzu. Zhou Fenghan walked out from the inside and 100+ people bowed to him respectfully. "Feng Yang, when you go to the Sky-bearing Empire this time, it would be best if things go your way. If it doesn't go your way, it is best for you to pull out early with your safety as the #1 priority. You can make the decision for everything on the ground and you do not need to be too concerned about the losses and gains. You are someone whom my Zhou family cannot lose." Zhou Fenghan's tone was solemn and cautious. After he heard about the news, he was first excited. But after thinking about it, he felt as though something was wrong. To stir up a storm in such a critical period, Zhou Fenghan would not believe that there wasn't a scheme hiding within it, even if his head was chopped off. Especially since the Sky-bearing Empire was the territory of that little devil, how could Zhou Fenghan not be worried? But if he were to give up the matter and ignore it completely, Zhou Fenghan felt that it was a waste of this chance. After much consideration, Zhou Fenghan personally picked out his second brother, Zhou Fengyang, who was resourceful and extremely careful. Zhou Fenghan was extremely certain that with his second brother's brains and might, he may be able to contend with Ling Tian. Even if he wasn't able to do so, he would definitely be able to make a full retreat. As for sending Zhou Yanzu as well, it was Zhou Fenghan's precautionary measure. While Zhou Yanzu was still young, she was extremely intelligent and shrewd, being one of the most outstanding person of her generation. Together with the fact that a female was more meticulous, she would definitely be of great help to Zhou Fengying. If not for the fact that Zhou Yanzu was a lady, he would have definitely made her the successor to the Zhou family. Besides that, he had another thought: the Sky-bearing Empire is the territory of the little monster after all. If Zhou Fengying were to frustrate him with his actions, Zhou Fengying may not even be able to return. After all, while the world may ignore Ling Tian's existence, Zhou Fenghan had personally experienced the wisdom of this brat. He had paid close attention to Ling Tian in these few years, understanding the strength which Ling Tian grasped. As long as Zhou Yanzu was present, she would be able to serve as a buffer. First, Zhou Yanzu was Zhou Fenghan's only granddaughter and her status would make one cautious about touching her. Second, old Madame Ling had always loved and doted on Zhou Yanzu, with the both of them even exchanging letters over the years. In case anything goes wrong, she should be able to serve as a mediator. Third, Zhou Yanzu was related to a huge gamble between both their families. If Ling Tian does not want to hand over half of his family's wealth, he would definitely have to be polite to Zhou Yanzu. Fourth, there was a vague intent of using her as a honey trap. Facing such a beauty, even if she were to really make a mistake, which man on earth can bear to kill her? Rest assured, elder brother, when this foolish younger brother goes there this time, I will definitely not let you down. Zhou Fengyang replied with a smile, ignoring his elder brother's concern as he thought to himself, at the very most, Ling Tian is just a young man who is still wet behind the ears. Is he worth so much attention? Us brothers had roamed unhindered in the world for a few decades already. Since when have we been afraid of anyone? Zhou Fenghan was naturally able to read his younger brother's thoughts. Zhou Fenghan knew that everything about this brother of his was good, apart from the fact that he was too arrogant. That bad habit of his was something which had never been corrected. Zhou Fenghan then let out a long sigh as he warned again, "Second brother, Yan Zhu, when the both of you go to the Sky-bearing Empire, the both of you would definitely face Ling Tian from the Ling family. The both of you must bear this in mind, do not be careless." Zhou Fenghan purposely emphasized on his last few words. Chapter 127, Invitation from the Royal Consort. On the other side, Zhou Yanzu snorted lovably, apparently unsatisfied with how her grandfather kept mentioning that infamous silk pants name with such a serious expression. The only thing praiseworthy about him would be the fact that he had a good grandmother as well as a good mother. In their family, which of the males was actually outstanding? Zhou Fenghan merely laughed as he pinched Yanzu's nose lightly, saying, "Little lass, don't be angry. Don't forget, you're the gambling stake between our two families, ha ha ha." Her face turned red at this comment. Zhou Yanzu could not help but shout out embarrassedly, "Grandpa, you're already at such an age but you're still so childish. Grandma Ling is a woman of caliber to be respected. But, she has made a mistake of thinking too highly of her grandson and thinking too lowly of me. HMPH, I can guarantee that, for this gambling match, our Zhou family will not lose. You can rest assured and wait to receive half of the Ling family's wealth, this is more worth looking at." Zhou Fenghan burst out into raucous laughter. The crowd cupped their fists and bid their farewells. Under the order of Zhou Fengyang, the 100 of them got onto their horses at the same time. All the horses neighed in unison as the people got onto them, tossing their manes and galloping off. Sky-bearing Empire. My Zhou family is coming. All the rains and winds will gather at Sky-bearing, so how can our Zhou family be absent? Just as every major power on the continent was preparing themselves anxiously by recruiting and deploying armies, the Sky-bearing's Ling family, who was situated in the center of the vortex, was actually holding a welcoming dinner for the great Mr. Qin. In the feast, Grandpa Ling, as per usual, lectured Ling Tian for failing to meet up to expectations. After which, Grandpa Ling then grumbled continuously towards Mr. Qin, complaining about Ling Tian's unruly behavior for the past few years and how Ling Tian was not improving. Grandpa Ling finally beseeched Mr. Qin to further educate Ling Tian, since he was the only teacher willing to take Ling Tian in, and that he had to make Ling Tian see the error in his ways, so that Ling Tian might change. He was allowed to beat and scold Ling Tian as he saw fit, so long as Ling Tian had a breath of life remaining. While Grandpa Ling was venting his frustration, Ling Tian merely kept his head down, not daring to make a sound. As for his mother, Chu Tinger, her face was full of guilt as she lowered her head, not even daring to eat. It was as though her face had been completely thrown away by the silk pants son of hers. Sitting by the side, Ling Zhou originally expressed his agreement and even wanted to add his own thoughts. But with a penetrating glare from his wife, this Sky-bearing's great general was suddenly tongue-tied. Seems like this was an inherited fear in the Ling family's men. Mr. Qin had an expression as though he wanted to laugh but could not. Teach him? Stop joking with me. Since 10 years ago, I had nothing left to teach him. It is more like him teaching me instead. With a mouthful of wine, he choked till his face turned red but was unable to swallow it, afraid that he would spit it back out and make a greater fool of himself. The only person who understood everything, old Madame Ling, was rolling her eyes. She originally looked at Grandpa Ling with eyes that were between laughter and anger. But seeing that old man spewing endlessly, she finally blew her top. "You darned old man, have you finished talking? We're having a meal, why are you talking so much? Seeing that no one is stopping you, you're becoming more and more vigorous, huh? This is a welcoming feast for Mr. Qin. Shut up and eat." Grandpa Ling seemed to have lost the ability to talk and could only resentfully raise his cup, downing the wine in a go. His larynx suddenly seemed to have a lock on it, unable to even speak a word. After the meal, Mr. Qin put on a severe expression, commanding Ling Tian to follow him to his courtyard as though he was about to give the latter a dressing down. He flicked his sleeves and blustered, glaring at Ling Tian. Grandpa Ling watched with satisfaction at the side, before clasping his hands behind his back and strolling back to his study, waiting for the good news from Mr. Qin. The duo barely stepped into the courtyard before Mr. Qin lost control of himself. His snow-white beard trembled and his old wrinkled face curved into something resembling a flower blossom as his solemn self moments ago vanished totally. "My dear young noble Ling, your subterfuge is top-notch. This old me regrets not staying here for the past 3 years, missing out on so many entertaining shows." Ling Tian also laughed in response. "Mister, there's no need to feel regret. So long as you remain here, I can assure you that what's coming next will be even more interesting." His face now revealed a mischievous look as he continued, charging in from the front. "How can that beat the euphoria of sneaking up on someone and assassinating them? To let your enemies die without knowing who the mastermind is, depressed to the point of puking blood, isn't that more efficient? Rather than merely hiding in a secret place and controlling the scenes from behind, to be someone who is a good-for-nothing and yet be able to summon the winds and call the rains, that is what I'm after. All under the heavens might think they know me, but who under the heavens actually does? Letting my enemies die under confusion and depression is my greatest joy." Ling Tian shook his head and winked. "Ha ha ha." Mr. Qin felt as though he had laughed more today than he had for the past 3 years. However, he suddenly thought of something, and asked, "By the way, you haven't gotten rid of the Ling Kong and Son pair?" Ling Tian smirked. "Both father and son have fallen into my trap a long time ago. I currently have their lives in the palm of my hand and can let them disappear without sound nor news at any moment. I was actually intending to find an opportune time. Now, an opportunity has arrived. After the Nangong and Yang family duke it out, it would be the best time to cleanse the Ling family." Mr. Qin trembled involuntarily. He naturally understood what cleansing the Ling family meant. Most likely, thousands of people were about to pay the price for Ling Tian's cleanliness program. That price would be their lives. In Mr. Qin's impression, Ling Tian was a good person and a good student. However, this good person had a limit. So long as you do not provoke him, all would be fine, since Ling Tian was a magnanimous person. But if you touch his baseline, he will change his attitude, faster than the time taken for you to flip a page on a book. Once he reveals his cruel and vicious self, it would surpass anyone's imagination. For Ling Tian, his endure came in 2 different forms. The first was the endure intolerance, the second was the endure in ruthlessness. For both, Mr. Qin had first-hand experience. Needless to say, Ling Tian personally helped Mr. Qin to settle down. However, when he returned, he did not see any traces of Ling Chen and Yu Bingyan. Only after asking around did he realize that his mother had called the 2 of them over for some idle chat. This got Ling Tian puzzled. What sort of weird ideas is my mother up to again? Ever since old Madame Ling got her to slowly take over the family business, Ling Tian had begun to feel that his mom was getting more and more difficult to deal with. He originally thought that his mother was merely a kind and loving person, but after digging deeper, he discovered that this was not the case. Just take a look at the females in the Ling family, all of them were incomparably valiant. This was especially true after his mother took over the family business. She seemed to be enthusiastic about it, revealing her outstanding talents. In addition to the support from old Madame Ling, she had turned into the model of a career superwoman in Ling Yan's eyes. An interesting cycle was imperceptibly formed in the Ling family. From the memories of his previous life, Ling Tian had numerous business plans and ideas. As the saying goes, even a person who hasn't eaten pork before would have seen a pig walk. A few random pointers thrown to old Madame Ling would make her treat them like treasures. After polishing them and passing them to Chutinger, she would not carelessly treat them as mere recipes to blindly follow. Instead, she would input in her own variations, turning these ideas into shiny white tails of silver that flowed unceasingly into the Ling family. However, whatever that old Madame Ling learned was only limited to whatever the pedantic celestial master of Ling Tian chose to give. Chu Ting originally thought that these ideas were obtained from her erudite mother-in-law. Thus, Ling Tian had always managed to keep himself under wraps. However, Ling Tian had begun to think that both women were becoming harder and harder to placate. His mother was still better off, since she did not know the truth. But old Madame Ling would keep trying to probe Ling Tian, staring at him for long periods of time, causing him to feel trepidation and fear. Even if you say that it was normal for a grandmother to stare at her grandson, but would the stare make one feel afraid? Finally, Ling Chen and Yu Bingyan strolled back leisurely. At this point, Ling Tian had almost fallen asleep due to his boredom. But upon seeing their weird expressions, Ling Tian jolted back awake in fright, not knowing what his mother did this time to incite such weird expressions on their faces. "Young noble, the royal consort sent an invitation over to our residence, inviting all the madams of the imperial court to the Smoky Thea Pavilion for a feast. Madam had already agreed to attend and thus, was preparing some gifts for the royal consort as well as the other madams." Ling Chen spoke in a weird tone and a face full of mischievousness. She had obviously come to a conclusion to what Chu Tinger was scheming. "Ah. After that year of gathering, didn't mother swear that she wouldn't attend these sorts of banquets ever again?" Ling Tian asked in doubt. Since Chu Tinger was the wife of the Sky-Bearing's war god, to say that she was the top of the noblewoman was not exaggerating at all. So why was she not willing to gather with the other wives? Was she putting on airs? The actual case was that Chu Tinger was a virtuous and caring wife, unwilling to put on any airs. But who asked Ling Tian to be Sky-Bearing's #1 silk pants, unwilling to settle down even now? Hence, Chu Tinger had always been worried about her son's future, gritting her teeth to promote her son to all her sisters around the city. However, everyone had already heard of Ling Tian's morals and conduct, hence the obvious results. Wherever Chu Tinger went, those noblewomen with status would immediately scatter as though they had encountered the plague. Only those who schemed to get into their inner circle would suck up to her. However, Chu Tinger was unwilling to entertain them. With the path to the top closed off, but unwilling to cast her eyes downwards, Chu Ting finally made up her mind not to attend such gatherings any longer, so as to avoid the supercilious looks of the other noble women. Furthermore, many of the Ling family's matters required her attention. Thus, she did not have much time to devote towards such trivial matters. "Aunt summoned me over to ask about a lot of matters regarding Sister Wei. It seems like Aunt Wei will be present tomorrow." Yu Bingyan's voice sounded weird, unlike her usual tone.